All right, let's get to the big breaking news that is coming in. Has J.D. Vance turned into Prime Minister Modi's fanboy? Well, Donald Trump's deputy has hailed Prime Minister Narendra Modi, calling the Prime Minister the most popular leader. PM Modi's popularity trumps Vance. J.D. Vance has remained awestruck by Prime Minister's popularity. He's also said in his Jaipur address that he's jealous of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's approval rating and that the PM is the most popular in the democratic world. That's the US Vice President for you, ladies and gentlemen. Let me quickly go across to Srinjoy and Rishabh, who are joining us on the broadcast. Srinjoy, to you first. Quite a statement there by the American Vice President praising and heaps of praise for the Indian Prime Minister, saying that he's jealous of Prime Minister's approval ratings, clearly reflecting the kind of significance that the India-US relationship will hold henceforth.
Well, first of all, the Vice President is right, because Prime Minister's popularity ratings remain very good despite being Prime Minister for so many years. He's won 3 elections virtually on his own, and his popularity ratings after 11 years are fairly magnificent. And that's the first thing. And in comparison, even his bosses, President Trump's ratings have fallen in recent weeks. So it's very clear that there is something special, and the fact that the PM is as popular as he still is actually something to keep in mind. And that is exactly what the Vice President has done. He has kept in mind the Prime Minister's popularity ratings, the fact that the PM's ratings are as strong as they are. Even today, after 11 years in power, he remains probably the most popular Indian politician today. So at this point, his ratings are high, and that is something the Vice President is envious about. And he says this openly, and he says this with great honesty, that yes, he is envious of the Prime Minister's popularity ratings. Now, what does this mean for India and America? Naturally, the Americans want to deal with a leader who can take decisions, who has support from the people of the country, and therefore it is easier to take decisions and work with someone who is a strong leader. And that's what Vance is actually talking about, that we can do business with Modi because he represents the country, and in a strong way, and in a way that is very clear to his own people.
Yes.
That the PM's popularity will ensure that the decisions that the Prime Minister will take, even if they are hard ones, will go down well. Now, because there are so many important decisions to take in the future, including a trade deal that should happen perhaps the end of the year, it is something to keep in mind, the Prime Minister's popularity.
Right, Srinjoy and Rishabh, I'm going to come back to you, but first let's play out what J.D. Vance, the American Vice President, has said about Prime Minister Modi today in Jaipur.
I'm not here to preach that you do things any one particular way. Too often in the past, Washington approached Prime Minister Modi with an attitude of preachiness, or even one of condescension. Prior administrations saw India as a source of low-cost labor on the one hand, even as they criticized the Prime Minister's government, arguably the most popular in the democratic world. And as I told Prime Minister Modi last night, he's got approval ratings that would make me jealous.
Right, Rishabh, you know, the US Vice President there in Jaipur, he's been having quite a schedule in his India visit. First, that meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, extremely crucial as far as the bilateral trade agreement around the tariff concerns is concerned between India and US. And now, of course, in Jaipur, clearly reflecting the Indo-US relationship only going upwards from here on.
Well, definitely, India-US relationship is on in an upward tide, and that is something that is very clear. US Vice President J.D. Vance visiting India within the first 100 days of its inauguration showcases that how much of importance US is according to India. Apart from that, in the 30-minute odd address that J.D. Vance has done at Rajasthan International Center in Gurgaon earlier today, he spoke on energy, he spoke on defense, he spoke on trade. He went on to speak on how it felt to be the guest at Prime Minister's residence last evening. He also said that how the food that was served at Prime Minister's residence made his son Vivek say that he wants to stay in India. Lighter moments aside, he spoke that how India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi is a great negotiator, a tough negotiator, and looks at things in black and white, and that's the reason that things between India and US would be good. He also goes on to say that how F-35s of United States would be a great add-on to Indian air defense. And remember, while Prime Minister was in Washington in February, it was Donald Trump himself saying that we are ready to sell F-35s to India as well. So for the first time, we are seeing an eagerness coming in from Washington to sell defense equipments to India. J.D. Vance also mentioned that how US would like to India to purchase more US assets.
Yes.
We haven't seen, there has been a restraint from the United States about selling defense equipments to India. Rather, it has given it better to Pakistan and other countries. With India, it has been quite a difficult thing in past. But now we see readiness coming in from Washington. Apart from that, it is also very clear that how both the sides are looking forward to the bilateral trade agreement that is expected to be signed by end of this year.
That is something that we'll have to wait and watch out for, how it really pans out between India and United States of America. But Srinjoy, to you, we're playing these three visuals for our viewers. On one hand, there is the US Vice President J.D. Vance, who's praising Prime Minister Modi and saying that he's jealous of his approval ratings. There is another picture which is coming from the Jeddah city in Saudi Arabia, where the Indian Prime Minister has been given a 21-gun salute and accorded a very warm welcome by the West Asian region. And a third visual, which is that of the leader of opposition of this very country, who goes on the American soil and insults the democratic institutions of the country as well as the nation, clearly reflecting the kind of priorities and the respect that both leaders enjoy.
Well, first of all, you see the kind of response the Prime Minister gets in Jeddah. It's a clear sign that India has that respect. The Prime Minister himself has that respect and regard. And it is a reciprocal thing. When MBS came here, he was and is Crown Prince, and yet he got a state visit. Now, MBS hasn't forgotten, which is why you had those Saudi fighter planes escorting the Prime Minister's plane in, and the 21-gun salute. Naturally, this is a sign of reciprocity and a very welcome sign of reciprocity. As far as the Vice President's statements are concerned, they are absolutely correct, because India and America are going to work together, and they are going to work together very well. It has to be said that regardless of who is in power in Washington, India and America will do very well. But the Trump administration has gone out of its way to work with India. The fact that Tulsi Gabbard came as quickly as she did, and then the Vice President is here right now, is a sign that America
These are live visuals, viewers, that we are getting out of Saudi Arabia. As you can see, a very warm welcome by not just Indians who are residing in Jeddah city, but also Saudi Arabian citizens. Listen in to one of the men who perhaps is crooning to Indian Prime Minister Modi. Those visuals, of course, and that song coming in from Saudi Arabia, where a citizen of Saudi Arabia was singing the song Air Watan from the movie of Bollywood Razi to the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, clearly reflecting, the warmth that the two countries share. Srinjoy, we just saw Saudi Arabian citizens. Of course, later today, we're also expecting the Indian Prime Minister to be meeting with the Indian diaspora in Saudi Arabia. A strong community there, a warm welcome for the Indian Prime Minister, clearly reflecting the kind of significance that India enjoys in today's geopolitical situation.
Yes, first of all, the meeting this evening at about 6 o'clock Indian time with Indian citizens in Saudi Arabia. Now, that has been arranged by the ambassador and others, Sohail Ajaz Khan, very, very good officer there, and it will naturally go the way all the other meetings that Prime Minister has had in these 10 years plus with people in other countries. There is always enormous support for the PM in that. But as far as Saudi Arabia itself is concerned, there is a realization, and particularly so with MBS and PM, because they have a very warm relationship. They are friends. And as a result of that friendship is reflecting in the relationship between the two countries. It's very clear that the two countries want to do a lot with each other, and they are doing a lot with each other in defense, in as far as energy is concerned, in matters of new energy like hydrogen, in economic issues. The two countries can do a lot more and will do a lot more. In fact, perhaps this business of investing $100 billion in India by the Saudis will be the big moment, because this will show the faith in India, the faith in the Indian economy, the faith in the Indian people. $100 billion is serious money. But the Saudis know that if it's invested in India, it will help them. It will help them. It will not just help India, but it will help them. And that's why they are investing in India and nowhere else.
Right, Srinjoy and Rishabh, I'll come back to you. Let's quickly listen into what the American Vice President J.D. Vance said about PM Modi in his address at Jaipur today.
We're not here to preach that you do things any one particular way. Too often in the past, Washington approached Prime Minister Modi with an attitude of preachiness, or even one of condescension. Prior administrations saw India as a source of low-cost labor on the one hand, even as they criticized the Prime Minister's government, arguably the most popular in the democratic world, and as I told Prime Minister Modi last night, he's got approval ratings that would make me jealous.
Let's also listen in to what J.D. Vance had to say about his son loving India and, in fact, deciding to live in India in the near future. Listen in to that very adorable bite.
My son Ewan is 7 years old. He's our firstborn son. And yesterday, after we had dinner at the Prime Minister's house, the food was so good and the Prime Minister was so kind to our three children that Ewan came up to me afterwards and he said, "Dad, you know, I think maybe I could live in India."
Well, Srinjoy and Rishabh, we can understand why J.D. Vance's children are loving India. The food, the culture, everything is vibrant here. And, you know, we're not surprised that he wants to live in India. But Rishabh, coming to you, the fact that J.D. Vance has been heaping praises on the Indian Prime Minister only goes on to say, with the kind of significance that both countries place on each other. In fact, at a time when J.D. Vance is here, we're also seeing India and Saudi Arabia further strengthening their relationship. And those viewers are live visuals coming in from Saudi Arabia. Listen in. Right, so those are the vibrant, colorful visuals coming out of Saudi Arabia. A very warm welcome, which was accorded to the Indian Prime Minister as soon as he landed at the city of Jeddah, whether it is the Indian community there, the Indian diaspora, or the citizens of Saudi Arabia. Everybody has gathered, converged at the hotel where the Indian Prime Minister is staying to accord him a warm welcome. Rishabh, talking about the Indian diaspora there in Saudi Arabia, clearly 2.7 billion is a huge number, contributing not just to Saudi Arabia's development, but also strengthening the Indian community outside Indian borders.
Well, definitely. See, when it comes to Indian diaspora, and especially Indian diaspora in the Gulf region, it is one of the biggest diaspora that we have worldwide. When it comes to Saudi Arabia, the maximum blue-collar jobs that that are available in Saudi Arabia for diaspora or for foreign national is consumed by Indians. This not only helps Saudi Arabia build their own,
Rishabh, I'll come back to you. I'm currently joined on the phone line by former ambassador, Mr. J.K. Tripathi. Mr. Tripathi, warm welcome to Times Now. This is a crucial visit that we are seeing by the Indian Prime Minister to Saudi Arabia, his third since 2016. Extremely significant considering the fact that it has been an unstable geopolitical situation amid the two wars, as well as the West Asian region and its own instability.
Well, sir, you see, Prime Minister's third visit brings an advancement in bilateral relations between the two countries. In fact, if you remember, in one of the earlier visits, Prime Minister was given the highest civilian honor of the country, of Saudi Arabia, which was perhaps the second civilian, for which he was perhaps the second foreigner to receive such an honor by the King of Saudi Arabia. So these things themselves represent that India and therefore Indian Prime Minister's reputation and rating has gone leaps and bounds. You see, the Saudi Arabian government does not give this honor very easily to any foreigner. And that too, now a foreigner, being a Hindu, had been given an honor, and that speaks volumes about the relations. And the Crown Prince, MBS, he is quite pro-Indian. Yes. And that is what you remember when Imran Khan, during his last days, Imran Khan lamented that Muslim Umrah or Muslim Brotherhood has deserted Pakistan in favor of India. So that it itself shows how much India commands respect from Saudi Arabia or other Muslim countries. Gone are the days when Indians were just known as cheap laborers in the GCC countries in the whole Gulf. But now the Indians are in high positions of business and management and construction, and therefore they command a very big respect. And India's growing stature in the world stage, world arena, itself compels these leaders of these countries to take a pride in declaring them to be India's friends.
Right. Ambassador J.K. Tripathi, thanks very much for joining us on the broadcast and sharing your perspective on this crucial visit by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Saudi Arabia. Alongside viewers, let's also get you what US Vice President J.D. Vance has said about Prime Minister Modi. In fact, he said he's jealous of PM Modi's approval ratings. Listen in.
We're not here to preach that you do things any one particular way. Too often in the past, Washington approached Prime Minister Modi with an attitude of preachiness or even one of condescension. Prior administrations saw India as a source of low-cost labor on the one hand, even as they criticized the Prime Minister's government, arguably the most popular in the democratic world, and as I told Prime Minister Modi last night, he's got approval ratings that would make me jealous. My son Ewan is 7 years old. He's our firstborn son, and yesterday after we had dinner at the Prime Minister's house, the food was so good and the Prime Minister was so kind to our 3 children that Ewan came up to me afterwards and he said, "Dad, you know, I think maybe I could live in India."
Let's also get you how Prime Minister Modi was welcomed in Saudi Arabia in the city of Jeddah while a man crooned a Bollywood number towards him.
पहचानी तुझी से तू ही मेरी मंजिल है पहचानी तुझी से जो भी जहाँ भी मेरी बुनियाद रहे तू जो भी जहाँ भी मेरी रहे तू याद रहे तू मैं जहाँ रहूँ जहाँ मैं याद रहे तू मेरे मंजिल है पहचानी तुझी से तू ही मेरी मंजिल है पहचानी तुझी से जो भी जहाँ भी मेरी बुनियाद रहे तू जो भी जहाँ भी मेरी रहे तू याद रहे तू मैं जहाँ रहूँ जहाँ मैं याद रहे तू.
So there, a Hindi number being crooned towards Prime Minister Narendra Modi, that Air Watan from the Bollywood movie Razi. Indian Prime Minister, of course, being accorded a very warm welcome in Saudi Arabia, as is reflective in the visuals that are coming out of the Jeddah city. Rishabh, my colleague, continues to be with us on the broadcast. Rishabh, a warm welcome, a royal gesture by the kingdom itself, by the Crown Prince himself. But what's also interesting to know is that over the past few years, the two countries, India and Saudi Arabia, have really strengthen their cooperation in defense and energy, two sectors that are extremely crucial in the kind of unstable geopolitical situation that all of us have grappled with in the past few years.
Well, if we talk about energy, energy, India and Saudi are natural partners. While Saudi is one of the major crude oil producer, India is one of the major refining center. And that's the reason that both India and Saudi are dependent on each other on this front. And Saudi would like, and we have seen the crude oil import from Saudi going down in the last 2 to 3 years, given that India has started taking oil from Russia as well, though they were sanctioned, they were embargoed, but India did defy the international sanctions and purchased crude oil from Russia, which it refined and even sold to Europe.
I'll come back to you. Right now on the broadcast, I'm joined by former Ambassador Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar. Ambassador Sajjanhar, welcome to Times Now. Crucial visit there. Defense and energy, of course, have been the top two priority areas for both India and Saudi Arabia. But of course, this visit, the third for the Indian Prime Minister, comes at a crucial time amid the two wars and potential threats on Iran, potential sanctions that could be put by the United States of America.
Yeah, thank you very much. You're very right. I think the relationship between India and Saudi Arabia, of course, is a strategic partnership, and it has, over the last 10 years, we have seen that it has registered a significant advancement, significant growth. And this visit by Prime Minister Modi to Jeddah, coming as it does after more than 4 decades to this commercial capital. And this actually used to be the gateway to the holy cities of Mecca and Medina. So I think he is tracing the original route that used to take place from, by the Indian pilgrims who used to come from India and go to Saudi Arabia. So this is a very significant element. It is not just any other diplomatic visit. It is not just another protocol visit, but it has great substance. And the fact that the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has come to the airport to receive him and in terms of both substantive discussions and the agreements to be signed, it's a very significant visit which will take our relationship to the next level. Energy, defense, of course, are very important elements, but in addition to that, the second meeting of the Strategic Partnership Council, I think that will take the relationship to higher echelons in higher plane.
Absolutely, Ambassador Sajjanhar, and just the fact that, India has been reaching out to the West Asian region, to the Gulf countries, is important because India and GCC are focusing on further strengthening their trade cooperation, whether it's with Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Bahrain or Qatar or UAE or Oman even. All of these countries are now coming together for stronger trade relations in the context of course, the IMEC also, which could find a mention when Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets and holds that bilateral talk with the Crown Prince.
No, absolutely. I think IMEC is definitely a very significant element of the bilateral partnership, and it will be a very important element of discussions when the two leaders meet. You would recall that IMEC was launched in 2023 when we had the visit of MBS for the G20 summit in Delhi. And Jeddah coming from India via the maritime route, going to the UAE, and then from there traveling on through Saudi Arabia to Jeddah. So this is the route, and you would recall that when Prime Minister Modi had gone to France for the AI Action Summit, he had traveled to Marseille, which is again the end of the IMEC. So this will definitely be an important element of discussion between the two leaders. And as you said, the India-GCC FTA discussions on which have been going. When the Sultan of Oman, he visited India recently, that was also an important element of discussions. And I'm sure that Saudi Arabia, which is the largest economy amongst the GCC nations, I think this will be an important subject of bilateral deliberations between the two leaders.
Right. Ambassador Ashok Sajjanhar, thanks very much for joining us on Times Now.